president and CEO of ABC, but also, professionally, I want to be a civil rights leader and a freedom fighter, a justice seeker, and all of that. But I think deeper, I'm pretty simple. I'm just a regular old person, a girl with a heart for other people. And I actually really don't like when people put the superhero cape on me. I was on my way to law school.
Okay.
I got pregnant. I decided to be a mom, to become a mom. And so I was pregnant at 23. Family and society felt like that was it. You've ruined your life. You can't, you're not going to become the things that you had hoped for, because I have had a lifetime of people who've tried to put limitations on me based on either what they thought, what they saw, or maybe the limitations they had for themselves. I tell people I'm not resilient, I'm relentless. Welcome to the Diane Bell McCoy Equity First webinar series by Associated Black Charities. My name is Chrissy Thornton, and I love this webinar series where we get to talk to Black professionals about their journey and to talk about how they have kept equity in the forefront of their initiatives. And today is special because today we are interviewing me. And I'm so excited because I had the opportunity to select someone to conduct my interview for whom I have great respect and great regard. And so it is my pleasure tonight to introduce you to Dr. Frances Toni Murphy Draper.
Thank you so much, Chrissy. It is a pleasure to be here. I've watched the Equity in Action series, and you've usually been where I'm seated, so it's hard to be on the other side. But we want to know really about who Chrissy Thornton is beyond the title, and have lots and lots of questions. I don't know whether we'll get to all of them, but let's start with this one. So some people may not really know who you are. They may know that you are the CEO, president of Associated Black Charities, and correct me if I didn't get the title correct, but who are you beyond that?
So I think, sure, president and CEO of ABC, but also, professionally, I want to be a civil rights leader and a freedom fighter, a justice seeker, and all of that. But I think deeper, I'm pretty simple. I'm just a regular old person, a girl with a heart for other people that tries to live with compassion. I try to live with kindness. I try to care about other people and to make sure the people around me get to experience all the blessings that I have, by nature of being connected to me. And so, I think I'm just a regular person. And I actually really don't like when people put the superhero cape on me because it's a lot to live up to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so we have to get back to who puts the cape on who, but I'm curious about your childhood. Most of us had either a person or an experience or something that shaped who we are today, who we want to be or who we don't want to be. But tell me a little bit about your childhood.
Yes. So both of my parents are from Virginia originally, and they met in New York City. And so I'm originally from New York. I was born in Manhattan from the Bronx. Spent most of my adolescence being raised in the mid-Hudson Valley of New York. So raised by two parents who were civil servants, both worked for the state of New York in various positions. Both of my parents worked with youth and worked in criminal justice. My father ended up as a career professional at the Bronx Supreme Court, working as a senior court clerk until his retirement. And my mother worked through probation and parole and ultimately ended up in the correctional institutions as a correctional counselor first. And then at some point, she was appointed by the governor of New York to serve as a correctional superintendent, which in layman's terms is a prison warden in New York State. And she retired from that position as well. So I grew up as an only child in New York. Fairly advantaged, middle-class family with opportunity. And at some point, my parents decided that they wanted me to have grass. This is how they tell the story. They wanted me to have access to grass. And so we had to move out of New York City in order to do that. So we moved about an hour and 10 minutes north of the city in the mid-Hudson Valley in a small town called Wappingers Falls.
Say it fast.
Wappingers Falls, yes. And so I went to school there. I graduated from John Jay High School in Wappingers Falls. And I have a lot to say about that community because it shaped me, but it also was not diverse. And so I spent a lot of time trying to figure out who I was in the juxtaposition of being in Wappingers Falls, but then when my parents divorced and my father moved back to the Bronx, spending every other weekend in the Bronx with him and traveling to do that.
Wow. And At 17, I understand you made your way to Baltimore and the national treasure, Morgan State University. Tell us a little bit about your time at Morgan.
So I went on a college tour. And we went, I think we started in New York, we went to Hampton, we went to other universities, Howard. And on the way back up to New York, the last stop was supposed to be at Morgan. And whatever happened, we didn't have time for the Morgan tour. And so we drove the bus we were on through Morgan's campus under the bridge at the time. They stopped the bus, this tour bus that I was on with other juniors in high school. And they were like, here's Morgan State University. We don't have time to get out, but here it is. And we kept on going back up to New York. And I don't know what it was, because it was the only school I didn't get to see, but I knew that it was the school for me. It was like not too far away from home. I could get back home. And I specifically was interested in attending an HBCU because of my high school experience.
So just going under the bridge.
Going under the bridge. That's all it took. I also liked that it wasn't that big, right? And now that was all of Baltimore I had seen too, right? Like I only saw that one segment of Morgan State University and didn't really know a lot about the city otherwise. But I was like, I think this is probably for me.
Now that's pretty amazing. I mean, so say a little bit more. So what did you major in? And tell us a little bit about your career journey after you left Morgan. And I think I remember seeing someplace you also sung on the choir.
Yeah, I was going to say, most people probably think I majored in choir because that's where I spent all my time at Morgan. But I came down to freshman orientation. I'll tell the choir story first. And I went to a choir workshop with Dr. Nathan Carter. And I was just enamored with his presence and his, excellence and all the things. And, I knew of the choir and I was like, I got to be a part of this choir. So I did initially join the choir. I came as a political science major because my long-term goal was to go to law school, to become a lawyer. I wanted to be a criminal defense attorney. Very interested in civil rights, very interested in, and still am, in people who are incarcerated, and then end up exonerated and that process. So I was a political science major. And originally that didn't work out for me. I will tell you in my freshman year, I'll tell you why it didn't work out. Because I've had these life-changing moments that inform who I am. So I've always been someone who's been a pretty decent writer. I had some moments in high school where we dealt with white supremacy in my high school. I went to a high school with about 1,600 students and only 38, 39 of them were classified as people of color. So that included Black people and other people of color. So very not diverse environment. And in my junior and senior year of high school, there was just like an uptick of neo-Nazi behavior and presence. There was hatred and white supremacy. A white supremacist news paper was distributed in high school. And there was just a lot of unrest. And I had a 10th grade English teacher who I still count as one of my strongest mentors named Mara Goldstone. And she came through a lineage of people who had survived the Holocaust, was very compassionate and sensitive. And we would have discussions. I've always been the type of person as an only child that really cleaved to adults, even in my childhood. And so I would be the type of person that would skip lunch and go sit with the teachers. And so she and I would have these really deep conversations, and she was very emotionally vulnerable. And she would weep and cry and really help me tap into my feelings that way too. And she taught me through Richard Wright's writing that my pen was mightier than the sword. Because, I'm a little spicy. I like to
we'll get
ramp up.
You're going to tell us what that means a little bit
more. But she
she
taught me how to write in a way that really expressed things that I was dissatisfied with. So I was a good writer. So I came to Morgan State University as a political science major. And one of our very first assignments was to write a research term paper for the class. And I wrote the paper. And I was a good writer for a freshman in college. And a whole thing happened. Now, remember, this is before the internet. We didn't even have computers then.
Wow.
I went to college with a word processor. So all you could do was type. You still had to go to the library and do your research and cite your sources and all that. And my political science professor, as a freshman at Morgan, made an accusation that he didn't think I wrote the paper. He thought the work was too advanced for a freshman in college to have written that paper. And I navigated a whole thing. I remember my aunt had to come to the school and vouch for me, and I ended up having to call back to New York and have some of my high school professors send some of my written work
Wow.
to show the caliber at which I'd been trained to write and all of these things. And I got an apology and all those things, but then I ain't want to be in that man's class no more. So I changed my major. I was like, no, for real, that's what we're doing. But it also, like, in the long run, as I think about that and how little we expect from Black people, even within our own community, and so I transitioned to become a sociology major. And that was the defining moment. I still had dreams of going to law school, but I just didn't like, the accusation that I couldn't have already come and had this writing acumen. So I was a sociology major. I also always wanted to be a public speaker, but I dealt with a pretty significant speech impediment. Most people that know me now and hear me speak now can't hear it. But I've been trained out of it for the most part. When I get lazy, it's really prominent. And so I had people who I was telling I wanted to be this public speaker, I want to be a motivational speaker, who would always tell me that was not a good goal for me because of the speech impediment. And so I had all these things working. I was able to write and I had to prove my worth there.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a public speaker, and I had people telling me I couldn't do that. I had 2 parents that worked for the government who felt like that was the only way to success, through government work and a pension and all these things. And I just knew I wanted to be something different. And then came the Morgan State University Choir. So not only did I join the choir, but I ended up being part of the touring choir. So Dr. Nathan Carter saw something in me and selected me to be part of the touring choir, which really just set me on a foundation to make most of the friends I still have till today. We traveled. We represented the organization. We got very deep into appreciation for the Negro spiritual. So I had been someone who had been raised in the church, was a church singer. I was a choral singer at school. But really, I think connecting to the power of the Negro spiritual was revolutionary for me. And it's something I still do. I still revere it. I still practice singing and teaching people about it. And so all those things happened because I went to Morgan. I can't imagine if I had gone anywhere else, that the good, the bad, or the ugly wouldn't have happened. But all those things happened and really inform who I am.
I'm glad you just changed the major and didn't change schools, because it sounds like that was really a defining moment for you that put you on the trajectory that you are now. So it also sounds like you pretty much are a risk taker.
Oh, yes.
Okay. You used the word spicy. That was your word, not my word. So you want to say a little bit more about spicy?
Spicy.
What's that mean?
So I think I have parents who believed in being high achievers. My mom is like the first of everything. She was the first Black social worker in Northampton County in Virginia. She was the first Black woman at the United Nations in security. She was the first, all these things. And so I grew up understanding that you could push boundaries. And for me, I wanted to push them beyond what I saw them do. So I've always really believed in entrepreneurship. I believe in learning new things. I do all kinds of things that people wouldn't know that I'm able to do just because I believe.
Well, tell us a couple of those things.
So I sew.
You do?
Okay. I'm someone that can construct garments. My grandmother was a sewer, and I would spend summers in Hampton with her, and she would tinker around with me and stuff. And she was also someone who crocheted and did all those things. So I'm a creator. I love, one of my favorite things is taking something and deconstructing it and putting it back together as something else. So I sew, I draw, I build things. I'm very creative. I come up with 10 businesses a day, most of which I can't execute, but I wish somebody I could share my business ideas with, because I'm like, this would be a killer business. So I'm very, I think out of the box like that. But yeah, I do all kinds of different things. I like to do them.
Oh, I love your definition of spicy, right?
Yeah, spicy is so I have friends that'll say, you're like Medea, you go from 0 to 100. Yeah, there's a little bit of that. I tell people I am from the Bronx, right? And right. There's a part of me, Bronx, when I think of being from the Bronx, it's the strength of it all. It's also being unapologetic. Not just racially unapologetic, but in all the ways we show up. We are who we are. We're a little tough. We're a little gritty. We're not about any, I think, performative stuff. You get who you get. And that's that New York culture that I think still lives through me. But yeah, I can get a little angry and a little direct when it's necessary. So I like to call that my spiciness.
That's your spicy, right? Okay. And so there's something that you did between, of course, Morgan and Associated Black Charities. So tell us a little bit about your leadership journey and other organizations and how that prepared you for what you're doing now.
So I left Morgan and I set out on my law school journey. I initially went to Towson to pursue a degree in counseling because I wanted to like build this package of expertise. And then I was going to go off to law school. And then I got pregnant. And I like to tell that story. There was a time I wouldn't have told it, right? Like I grew up in the church and I grew up with expectations. But I love to tell it now. Not only because of the outcomes of the child and my journey and all that, but I love to tell it now because I love for young women to understand what it means to be diverted but not disrupted, to have things happen. And, you know, at the time that I was pregnant with my oldest son, you know, family and society felt like that was it. You've ruined your life. You can't, you know, you're not going to become the things that you had hoped for because you've, you know, gotten in this situation that won't allow you to win and succeed. And that was not the case, right? Like that grittiness showed up when it needed to for me. And so I like to tell that story because I don't want people whose path is not straight and narrow to be discouraged. I want people to see what can come of that. And I do like to tell the story because I was on my way to law school.
Okay.
I got pregnant. I decided to become a mom. And so I was pregnant at 23, I had him at 23, had already graduated college and, you know, had a job and all those things. And I was a responsible person. And I like to tell people also that I was like this, how people experience me now. I was like this at 12 years old. So old soul. Remember I told you I like to be around adults. Very, I think, metered, responsible and all these things. And so I had my son and I didn't get to go to law school because I had new responsibilities, but he did. And he graduated from St. John's Law School about 2 years ago. He passed the bar last year. He's an active attorney. And I like to tell people God knew that he had that for me. And we continued that goal for ourselves, right? Like that testimony is so important to me. But so I didn't get to go to law school. And now as a younger mother, and I started working. I worked for adult psychiatric day services for a long while. I worked as a vocational rehabilitation counselor in the workers' compensation system. And I had these little jobs, right? Until I decided that I didn't want to work for the man anymore. Like that was a thing for me, right? Remember I said I was entrepreneurial. And I didn't want anyone telling me like when to come to work, when to go to the bathroom, when to eat lunch. Like for me, it just like I didn't see myself working those 40 years in one role and not having the freedom. And so I had a new plan that I was going to become an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And I was not going to stay in traditional work. And so I was working at different organizations and at 29, because my goal was to move out of that stuff by 30. So at 29, almost 30, I was working at Goodwill Industries down on Redwood Street. And I had this new opportunity to become an entrepreneur. I had done a little real estate investing and it was very lucrative. And I wanted to be a franchise owner. So I went out and bought a Curves for Women franchise. The first one I bought was in Brooklyn Park.
Wow.
And I was going to do the thing. And I went into Goodwill Industries and not with any grace at all, let those people know that I was out, that was it. And I was walking out into my own destiny. And I will tell you that I had a great run at Curves. Within the first 6+ months, I had bought my second location in Glen Burnie. The crazy thing about it is that I didn't have a business mentor. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I wanted to work for myself and I had no real strategy. So I bought the second club 4 miles from my first club. I created my own competition.
Right.
And then within those 4 miles, Planet Fitness popped up.
Okay.
And drove both of my clubs out of business. But it's such a learning opportunity. I wouldn't have done it any other way because I learned so much about business. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about needing a mentor, needing someone to guide you through things, not just like approaching life in your own crazy way, but figuring it out. And so I went and got an MBA. And I did it in an adult learning program where we went in person, and I had cohort learning, and I got my master's in organizational management with concentration in business. And my then 3-year-old son went with me. And so this is where I talk about being gritty and really, picking up what I felt like were the pieces of my life and some choices and decisions that I made and turning them into good. And so I did all of that. And then the curves went out of business. And I was like, what am I going to do now?
Right, now what?
And I was like, I got to go back to work. And so I had always done a lot of church ministry work around events. I had done fundraising. I had done a lot of that. And I was like, you know what? I think I can do this. So I went and got a part-time job with the National Alliance on Mental Illness doing like event coordination. What I didn't know is that it was more than event coordination. They had brought me in. I think I was working like 20 hours a week. And when I got there, it's like, no, you're going to plan our big statewide walk event for us. And I'm like, well, I've never done anything like that before. So within the first couple of months, I had already had a plan that like, well, I got to turn this into something. So I was full time now. And that first walk event is a peer-to-peer fundraiser called NAMI Walks. I was like, I'm going to kill it. And I killed it. Within the first year that I was there, we held the event. It outperformed anything that had ever happened. And I realized that there was a model that just worked for fundraising. And I immersed myself in learning more about it, believing in it, and knowing how to execute it, what I felt like was flawlessly. And so within a little bit over a year, the national organization had taken notice of my work. And they invited me to work for the national organization, which would require me to travel about 80% of the time.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So my mom, thankfully, was retiring at the time. I think my opportunity probably pushed her to retire even a little earlier because by then I had both of my children.
Okay.
My two sons, Jaden and Justin, and my mom started to come to Baltimore from New York when I had to travel for the job to be with my children, which made it all possible, right? And so that's what we did. I traveled all over the country. At one point, I had all 89 sites across the country teaching people how to execute this fundraiser, onboarding executive directors and training them how to do the work, really being a motivational speaker. You see how it comes full circle?
Right.
Yeah. And then strategizing around board development, teaching people how to serve on boards and all over the country. So I would be in small towns in Louisiana one week, and the next week I'd be in New York City, and the next week I'd be, in Seattle. And so I just traveled for this job and really honed the skill of, I think, encouraging people to feel good about fundraising and feel equipped to do it.
So where were you in your journey in terms of age? Were you 30s?
I think it was in my early 30s. Yeah.
And so you mentor a lot of young people.
Yes.
What would you say to a young woman who's not quite sure about where to start, where to go, based on your journey? It sounds like you've just done a lot of, you've pulled a lot of things together.
Yes. So I would say for me, I knew I wanted to win. That was the goal. It wasn't like a specific thing. I wanted to be successful. I really didn't care how I was successful.
Got it. Okay.
So I wasn't attached to one thing. Too many times we get attached to one way of winning and being successful that we can't deviate from it. I have had some things happen to me across my life that have made me pivot multiple times and then pivot again and pivot again. I've always been open to whatever the universe brought to me, whatever God brought in front of me. And that when he brought it in front of me, I would do it and do it well. And so I say for younger people who, you might set out and have some goals and everything might not go exactly like you want it to go, to be willing to look at what's in front of you and make the best of that. And so I've always been really good at that.
So is there any particular thing that really made you pivot?
So my father passed away.
Okay.
So actually, he had moved to Baltimore to be closer to me.
So your mom moved to take care of...
My mom was traveling back and forth. She was from New York, but my father actually moved to Baltimore to be closer to me. I'm my only child, right? And within 6 months, he had cancer. He had a diagnosis of 2 months to 2 years. He only survived about 2.5 months into that. It was life-changing for me. I mean, it's one thing to lose a parent. So I was about 31 when he passed, 31. It's another thing to be an only child and lose a parent. And, navigating that alone, my parents were divorced. So navigating that. And he had goals for me that we talked about before he passed. And so it was really important for me then, not just to want to win for myself and be successful for myself, but to make sure that I could make him and my mother proud as well. And so that was a pivotal moment for me, like a learning opportunity. Also being in Baltimore and deciding to stay here after Morgan and not having family here. Not having, any connections, having to build relationships, those choir family members and people that were in my village that I just knew along the way. Some people who were there for just a season and didn't go past that, and other people who are still there now. And so I think all those things became life lessons for me, but his passing was pivotal for me in, I think, really doubling down on who I wanted to become. I really feel that my parents, both coming from Virginia, both my parents went to HBCUs. My mom went to Virginia Union. My dad went to Allen in South Carolina. They had like strong goals for me and they sacrificed for me. And that resonates with me, that I need to do something with that.
Well, it sounds like they were wonderful. Or your mom is still living?
Yes.
So it sounds like your parents, your dad was wonderful, your mom is wonderful.
Yeah.
If you could think of one or two things that you carry with you from either of your parents, and you said something about your dad in terms of setting goals and sticking to them. What resonates with you? What do you tell your sons that your parents, what do you pass down to them?
So I think my parents were very goal oriented,
Okay.
right? I can't say that I grew up in the most, bubbly, loving household in that way, but certainly loved me, right?
That's obvious.
Right. And I think they had come from, their first generation college graduates and in their family. And we come from a family that wants you to do the next generation to do better. And I want the same for my children. I think my parents exposed me to so many things. So I am a child that was like in dance class. My father had like NFL, he was an NFL hopeful in college and that didn't work out, but he was a phys ed major. So and one thing that people don't know about me is like, I've taken swimming lessons, golf lessons, tennis lessons. I played softball. Obviously, I'm almost 6 feet tall. I played basketball. Like, he probably wanted a son. So that's a thing. But I've played every sport. And like, so everything was about like honing skills and being good at something. And then with my mother too, like we were in the National Black Child Development Institute. And I was very, very active. I was in the church house 3 to 5 nights a week. So very much into church and even into church leading. I was a president of the youth choir and of the usher board. And, I tell people church is my basis of leadership. That's where you learn your first public speaking. That's where you learn how to lead, how to run, how to have governance and all these kind of things. But they put me in classes like I did Upward Bound at Marist College, and I took English and writing classes at Vassar College as a child. Like I was a Girl Scout. I took dance. So I was busy. I had parents that kept me busy and exposed me to so many things. And I kept my children busy. And so they were exposed. So I pass that on, and I hope they do that when they have children, too.
It sounds like they won't have a choice.
It's kind of like family legacy. Yeah.
Let's bridge the gap a little bit. So we talked about your early childhood. We talked about how you got to Morgan. I just still can't believe it, just under the bridge, right? And all of the things that you did at Morgan and beyond. How did you get to ABC?
Oh, my gosh.
What was that journey?
Curves went away. Remember, I had walked out of my good job. The curves folded. The real estate bubble had popped, and I had gone back to the National Alliance on Mental Illness in this part-time job, made a name for myself, was promoted to the national level, and now I'm a nonprofit executive leader. I'm traveling all over the country. I'm making connections. I started consultancy on the side where I'm also working to support other nonprofit organizations. And so like the nonprofit leadership kind of became my jam. And working with NAMI around mental illness put me in the health and patient advocacy space. And so as my children started to get older, the very first time I missed like a band concert or a baseball game or something, I was like, oh, can't do this anymore. Got to come in off the road because I was spending so much time traveling. And so I pulled it back in. I started at the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. It's now called Blood Cancers United. I led their corporate development and I led their signature fundraising program for the state of Maryland. And at that time, I became a caregiver to my oldest son, who lives with Crohn's disease. Another life-altering moment, although I'll leave it to him one day to talk about that further. But what it did was it positioned me to marry my love for him and my nonprofit leadership, and I transitioned into an open role at the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. And so I became their executive director. I'm going to give you another thought. I had a colleague who told me when I was at one of the organizations, because I really wanted, now I'm like, okay, nonprofits, that's going to be my thing. I want to be an executive director. And someone said to me, you know what? I can see you being an executive director in about 10 years. Wow. And I heard that, and I was like, 8 months later, I was the executive director of the Crohn's and Colitis, so I'm just going to put that out there. I have had a lifetime of people who've tried to put limitations on me based on either what they thought, what they saw, or maybe the limitations they had for themselves. And it's like a pastime for me when people do that. Like, I need you to say to me, you'll never be a millionaire, because I'll probably go out there and be able to do it. But,
You'll probably jump right up from this interview. Yeah, you'll be gone. Right.
But so I became executive director. I ran the state of Maryland and Southern Delaware for that organization for almost 5 years into COVID. And then a position opened up at the National Alliance on Mental Illness, where I had spent the bulk of my career for the top position, the CEO position. And I interviewed for the position, and I was excited, and I know I was qualified. And the headhunter said to me, you would be amazing at this position, but you haven't managed a budget that's big enough. Okay. And so I heard that. And so I was like, oh, I got to go find me a budget to manage that's big enough. And so I ended up at a rare disease patient advocacy organization, but it was an international organization that was headquartered originally in Virginia, but I moved it to Maryland, to Columbia. Now, one thing about these nonprofit organizations, when I was going into them, they were all like, the door's about to close, like, just not in good shape. And so now I have decided inside my own brain that I am the Olivia Pope of nonprofit organizations. I'm going to go in, I'm going to raise it from the ashes. I've relocated organizations, restructured, restaffed, and that kind of became my jam, to go in to a struggling nonprofit, to assess it. I have this organizational management background, to assess it and rebuild it. And so I had now done this across several nonprofit organizations, got to this organization and did the same thing. And so it was on the other side of COVID, I signed a contract that was a 3-year contract to serve as their international executive director, and was enjoying the work. Along the way, I've always done health equity stuff, though. I really cared about how these organizations were triaging the needs of Black communities. And because people are like, how do you go from that to ABC? And you must remember, I am from New York. I grew up in the 80s in New York, where race was prominent, right? Like, I tell people I grew up and understood what happened with Howard Beach, with the Yusuf Hawkins case. I was from Wappingers Falls, and people who are my age and know that that is the hometown of Tawana Brawley. I grew up at the time of the Central Park Now Exonerated 5, and looking at these cases, and many of these people, I was the same age as them. And so really resonating with what was going on in the world. It's one of the reasons why, despite what other people think, I admire Al Sharpton so much, because I saw what it meant to like stand up in advocacy for other people. And so all of that has shaped who I am. And so my civic and community work has always been steeped in race equity and race advocacy and justice. And now I'm doing health equity work across the organization. So I'm in this contract at this international organization, and I'm just like, all right, it's not going that well. Like, my work is going well because I'm a winner, and winners win. But it's spicy. But, I'm like, it seemed performative. Like, I'm trying to push forward an agenda that is inclusive and diverse, and I'm not being supported in that. And so I used to be very devastated by that. I used to go home and like cry about it and stuff. And so my husband, now I'm remarried. I had been divorced. Now I'm remarried to the new husband. He goes on LinkedIn. He's like, I'm tired of you coming home crying. I'm going to find you a job.
Okay.
He goes on LinkedIn and he's like, here's a job. This sounds just like you. And I look at the job, and it's the ABC CEO job. Now, I know about ABC because I've been in Baltimore now 30 years, right? I had gone to a gala and some of the events and stuff. And I'm just like, I can't do this. I'm in a contract. And he's like, just look at it. And then I go on there and I'm like, the position was posted in June. It's August. I'm like, I'm too far down the line to get consideration. He's like, no, I just think just go and apply for it. Like, you got to get out of there. And I agreed with that. And so I applied for the job. And what ended up happening, my understanding is that there were, it was a nationwide search. There were thousands of candidates. When I applied for the job, they had whittled it down to 8 candidates. And so the headhunter called me and was like, we put you in. So I'm like, wow, that's a God thing. Yeah, how you come in? Okay. But I'm on contract. I know I can't break this contract any kind of way. And so I'm not really taking it seriously. He puts me in at 8, and then I start the long interview process. Let me just tell you, the ABC interview process was outrageous. I think I had 13 interviews between the headhunter and the in-person and the projects and all that.
Did you say 13?
I think it was like, if I think of interactions and meeting with staff and all that, like, it was a lot of interviews. And I'm running a whole international organization, so it made it difficult.
So how long ago was this?
This was 2022, so August of 2022.
Okay, so wait a minute. Let me make sure I have all of this straight, because my mind is racing. So you're running an international organization. Your husband goes to LinkedIn and sees this opportunity that you're interested in, but don't, yeah, you kind of saying,
Yeah.
well, I've got a good thing going on over
Yeah.
here that's kind of driving you crazy, but it's a good thing,
Yeah.
right? And so 8 people, they narrowed this national search down to 8.
Stuck me in.
You get into the pool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I start the interviews.
And you start this
whole process.
these marathon.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Okay, I'm trying to make sure I have it. Okay, 13.
And then
interviews.
also, I have questions.
I guess
what
so.
happened to the last lady, right? So I'm Googling and trying to find stuff or whatever else. But I'm not taking it ultra seriously until they call me and tell me it's down to 3 people. When they tell me it's down to 3 people and I'm still in, I say to myself and the husband, like, could really do this. Like, now I'm taking it seriously. So now I'm running my other organization and I'm like in the grind, right? And so if I'm honest, like I had several interviews with the recruiter, and then I had a Zoom interview with the board selection committee. And then I had to do a project, and then I had to meet in person with the staff, and then I had another interview with the recruiter, and then I had to meet in person with the board for a social gathering, and then I had to meet with one of the funders, and then I had to come in and so when people are like, they just went and got her from anywhere. No, they did their due diligence.
So over what time period was all of that?
So all of this was from August to October.
Okay.
And so October is the last of the thing. And then here's how I kind of knew, so a good friend of mine from Morgan had passed away. Member of the Morgan Choir, prominent member of the community, and her funeral was on the day of my last interview.
Wow.
And so I'm like, what am I going to do? Right? Like I didn't want to. And so I went to the funeral and I sang at the funeral as part of the choir. And I got up in the middle of the service and walked out and came to my last interview at ABC. And so I just felt like it was fortuitous. Like it was a thing, right? Like I felt like, again, it was a God thing. And then I was supposed to be here and that, I got up out of the funeral, walked out and came to ABC for the last interview. And I that day, they interviewed the last 3 people. We had to present our presentation, which really was, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've given you some background information. What will you do with this? Where will you take it? And I had my plan and my strategy. And I will say, I have done everything that I presented at that interview here at ABC.
So you presented a plan, and you've executed that plan. And it also sounds like you're from your background, you're pretty competitive as well.
Of course.
So that narrowing down to 3 kind of motivated.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That was a motivator.
Yes.
And so they offered you the position. And so
except I was on a contract.
Right. That's what. I was getting to that. I was
offered the position in October, but I had to navigate the releasing of that contract. So I had to do everything I needed to do on that end. I had to give 3 months notice. So I had to also then convince the ABC board to wait for me for 3 months. And I don't think they were going to do that. So then I came up with a new plan. I'm going to do both jobs. So I have to do what I have to do because I'm not going to leave this other organization or break my contract or put myself in any jeopardy. So I'm going to do that. And then behind the scenes, I'm going to be starting to gear up for ABC as well. So in November, I started to gear up, but I didn't officially start ABC until January 2023.
So I don't know when you slept. there was no sleeping there. But let's talk about this. So you've done a lot in a short period of time. And so kudos to you for that. What's been the most unexpected challenge of either your career or your personal life? It sounds like you're a planner and you prepare for things and you pretty much are on the offense. But is there any challenge that came that was just like,
how much time do we have for this interview?
I don't know. Just keep going,
Okay. So first, let me say that when people say you've done this or you've done that, let me say I have not done anything singularly or alone. I've inherited and brought along with me some amazing staff members that have helped to make any vision that I have had come true. And I'm very grateful for that. So I'm not alone. A lot of challenges at ABC. The first is that, and many people don't know, and I love this expose, that there was a 6-month period between when my predecessor, Diane Bell McCoy, for whom this series is named, vacated the position and I came. So there was no transition. In fact, I didn't have the opportunity to meet Diana until about 2 years into my journey here. And I'm very appreciative that I've had the opportunity to meet her. It has meant something to me and to know her a little more than I did. So that 6 months where she wasn't here and neither was I is a thing. Right.
Yeah,
and that is, and you know, there was interims and there was other things. The other thing is people need to remember in 2022, there's recovery from COVID. And so all of the staff that worked at ABC at the time was still remote. People had moved out of the country, out of the state. It was remote. And the office had been condensed, rightly so, for cost savings into about 990 square feet. And so I came in and my bright idea was, you know what? We're going to bring everybody back in the office. This is no longer remote work. And really for me, I knew I was going to have to run a smaller team and I wanted the camaraderie. I wanted us to work cohesively and collaboratively. And I didn't think we could do that remotely. And so I brought, at that time when I first started, 8 people who were left. We did some restructuring. There were 8 people left and I brought them all back into the office, into 990 square feet. Well, that was a challenge.
I can only imagine.
Right?
Right.
So one time, one person got sick, everybody got sick. You know, like we were just up on top of each other and those kind of things. And then also, like whenever you have a new, and I'm talking internally now, new leadership, right? It's like getting people on board with the new vision, the new structure, the new policies and protocols, the new ways that I lead. And, you know, and I'm leading a team that I didn't choose. All right. And so most people do know Chevelle Montgomery that works with me here. She's now the Director of Executive Affairs, but Chevelle has worked with me across my last 4 assignments. And I must say that bringing her to ABC grounded me and created a stability and a comfort level that helped me then lead differently.
Yay, Chevelle.
Yeah. It's very hard walking into an organization where you've hired no one.
I can
and now
imagine.
you're changing everything.
Right.
And so some of those people, you know, bought in and stayed on and some didn't, and it's been fine. So I think that was the first challenge. The second challenge is at that very time, ABC was transitioning from being a fiscal sponsor. So we had been a fiscal sponsor for the Ryan White HIV grant over the past, 16, 18 years. They had moved out of that work. And so part of my task and part of what I presented at the interview is, who's the new ABC going to be? Like, how do we maintain relevance? How do we expand services? Who do we become? How do we, maintain our market share, specifically in Baltimore, of the work? And so that was a challenge too, like wanting to make changes but not deviate, wanting to evolve but not take for granted the great work that had come before me that was important and valuable and that I needed to revere and consider, wanting to change but not move too fast. And then we had the Chrissy of it all. And what that is a couple of things. Chrissy moved to Baltimore at 17. But somehow Chrissy is still not from Baltimore and didn't go to high school in Baltimore, right? And that hometown advantage in Baltimore is a thing.
It is a thing.
So I have not lived a moment of my adult life anywhere else, but I'm not from Baltimore. And I'm a proud New Yorker, too. I try to suppress my New York accent, but that's for Baltimoreans' benefit, so I can be accepted. But I'm not from Baltimore, so I didn't have a hometown advantage. And even though I led other organizations at the top seat, right? Several other organizations, statewide, internationally, nationally, people didn't know me in front of the camera. They didn't know me visibly in the community in the same way. And so it was like, who is this? Who is this person that has come into this organization that we know and love? Who she thinks she is? She's not from Baltimore either. Oh, and where is Diane Bell McCoy? Right, which I actually, at first it was so intimidating to hear that. I still get that. I actually was at an event yesterday and someone came up to me and was like, are you the new Diane Bell McCoy? And I'm like, those are shoes I don't want to even try to fill, number one. But also the challenge was establishing my own identity and having it be an identity that people were open to. And so we did a lot of listening tours, a lot of meetings. Some people wouldn't even meet with me.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm unknown, right? Like relatively. People don't like change, right? They want things to stay the same.
I think that's true across the board.
Yeah. So some people met with me and just like, huh? And so, there was a lot of humility. There was a lot of listening. There were a lot of meetings. And I had really good advice coming in from a communications person who said, take people on the journey. So up until I got to ABC, I was a Facebook user. I wasn't really a LinkedIn user, but I've used my LinkedIn and someone said, take them on the journey with you. You don't let them decide who you are. You tell them who you are, right? And so I did that. I posted everything. If I went to the bathroom, I posted that. If I went to this meeting, I posted that. I went to probably too much, right? Yeah. But I mean, people, and so then my following on LinkedIn went from 300 followers to now 8,000 plus followers on LinkedIn nationwide, right? Because people felt like they were going along on this journey with me. And it's so interesting to me, even now when I'm out and about, people are like, hey, Chrissy, how are you? And I'm like, hi, how are you? And I'm like, where have we met? And they were like, oh, well, we haven't met. I know you from LinkedIn. And so people feel like they were brought along. The other thing is that I work hard. And so I knew I had to be visible. Visible meant 10 things a day. And now I'm posting all of those 10 things a day, right? So people are like, oh my gosh, when do you sleep? You're everywhere. Every time, we just love following your journey. I gave them content, a little bit of professional content, a little bit of the challenging content, a little bit of my personal stuff so you can get to know me as a human. And then I had some really great people, yourself included, who took to me really quickly. I don't know what that was. Yeah, now I'm going to interview you. Why was that you...
Well, I have a special affinity for people that can't answer the high school question. How about that?
Oh, wow. Okay. So people like you who saw me in rooms and said, let me introduce you. Let me give you this opportunity. I have a seat at the table. Let me invite you. Let me bring you along. People who literally would take me by the hand and walk me across rooms. The funny thing is about me, I'm an only child. I'm actually extremely introverted. Nobody believes that. But once I wanted to become a public speaker, I know how to turn it on. Mm-hmm. And then I turn it back off. There's a time that I turn it off, right? And I think being introverted makes me more likely to feel very comfortable when I know people. Like I could talk to you all day. I feel very comfortable. Mm-hmm. But when I don't know people, I'm just kind of a little more standoffish. And people have brought me out of that so that I could be more of a connector. Mm-hmm. And so that was a challenge too. And then, I love that people, especially Black community members, feel ownership of ABC. Mm-hmm. But sometimes when people feel ownership of an organization, they expect it to be what they need it to be. And so everyone has an expectation of the organization. This is probably the biggest challenge.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. So if you were to, and you're a public speaker, just in, I don't know, you may not be able to do it in 60 seconds or so, but how would you define the ABC of 2026? Because people have institutional memory, right?
Yes.
They revered, rightfully so, your predecessors. You did a lot of work. But I don't think the ABC of 2026 is the same ABC that it was. Not that there was anything wrong, but I think it's evolved to a different kind of direction, maybe, and mission. So what would you say to people if they said, ABC, what is that? Yeah. Just besides, the first three letters of the alphabet.
Yeah. Well, I love the ABC of it is like the advocate, convener. Well, I done skipped some letters. Advocate, broker, convener. I think at the end of the day, whoever came up with that was ingenious. That really defines the organization. But how I define it, we are an economic empowerment and racial equity organization. That means that we care about the economic mobility of Black people and Black communities. And the race equity part of that means that we care about access. We care about opportunity. And so that's broad. Mm-hmm. And so when I got here, I sought to really define it. What kind of opportunity? And so we look at the racial wealth gap, which is not my doing. That is an evolution and a continuation of the work of my predecessors. We look at workplace discrimination, education, health advocacy and access, because all of the patient advocacy work I've done, there was no way I would come here and not utilize that experience here. So health, housing, did I say education? And the last one is criminal justice reform. We care about what we consider discriminatory policies and pathways of Black community members' involvement in the criminal justice system, which is flawed. And so we created this kind of this is what we do. And I evaluate everything that comes to us across those 6 categories. And if it doesn't fit, we choose not to do it.
Okay, so say them again so that
it's the racial wealth gap, closing the racial wealth gap, workplace discrimination, education, housing, healthcare, and the criminal justice system. And so those are our thrusts. And those are the ways that we want to impact the lives of Black people. So, people come and bring opportunities to ABC all the time. And I'm like, where does it fit? If it fits, we do it. If it doesn't, we don't do it. So that gave me some boundaries. So defining us as an economic empowerment organization is really important in 2026 because we had impetus last year with the executive orders. People wanted us to change our name. People wanted us not to talk about Black people, not to talk about women, not to talk about marginalized people at all. So it's like, well, we can't do that, nor do we want to. But how can I better describe what we do? Because we do anti-racism work, but that is not the breadth of who ABC is, right? Like, what is it? So, we're digging deep, and I'm thinking I'm coming up with something great. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not. Because when Donna Stanley was here, she did economic empowerment work.
So she's
right?
a former
She's a former executive director.
Okay.
She was here for 18 years. Mary Demery was the first executive director. Donna Stanley, she did economic empowerment work. As I research it, I believe most of her work was done to create opportunity in probably what we would consider like the lower economic mobility section, like getting people to stability, getting people into jobs, getting people into, basic needs, and making sure that the needs of the Black community was triaged. Diane Bell McCoy had a whole campaign around more in the middle. She cared about how do we now bring Black people into the middle class, right, to increase our opportunity. So that was a continuation, was an evolution. And then I came here and I started doing community conversations and talking to people about what they wanted from ABC. And we had this like, well, ABC is for this person. ABC is for that kind of person. And I'm like, you know what? ABC needs to be for all Black people. And ultimately, by the way that we improve opportunity for Black people, ABC now becomes for everybody. White people, old people, young people, blue people, whatever. And so I really care about the spectrum of service. And so I'm like, but now I want to evolve what Diane did. And so let's also look at how do we take people who are now in the middle class, right, and get them to become owners, to be asset builders, to be investors, to have small businesses, to have home ownership, to be true investors so that we can build generational wealth. It's a continuation of the work, but at the same time, I don't want to abandon what they did. So the work we're doing in 2026 looks at how do we take people from maybe even extreme poverty and indigence all the way up to generational wealth, and every step of the ladder in between. What are the movement predictors that get Black people to solve their own issues, to build economic power, and ultimately to build generational wealth, and not just build it, but to protect it. What are the protection strategies? Because the goal is that we build more Black philanthropy, who then will pour right back into the cycle, and we build a continuum of economic mobility for our communities.
I love it. And so you talked earlier about listening sessions when you first came, and you just mentioned really quickly community conversations. I think you call them community combos. You want to say a little bit more about those?
Yeah. So when I got here, ABC was doing two major events. They had the gala, and they had Women on the Move, and some webinar work and stuff. Remember, we were coming out of the pandemic. And so the first thing we had to do was add some events, because one way I knew how to fundraise was to have event-based fundraising through corporate sponsorship. So one of the things I'm most proud of is that we've expanded the number of our corporate partners, probably at this point tenfold from when I got here. Like, it's been a strategy and it has worked. And we are not just getting sponsorships from businesses. We are actually in relationship and collaboration with our partners.
That makes a difference.
And it's mutually beneficial. And that matters to me. But as we think about this gala, that was so important to ABC. So I got here in January. There needed to be a gala in the second week of June, because I've been told must be the second Saturday in June. There had to be a gala, and nothing had progressed with it yet. So I was like, oh my goodness, I got to have a gala in 6 months. The first thing was we had no venue, right? Yep. And you're talking about in its heyday, ABC's gala had over 1,500 people. After COVID, it had gone down to maybe about 600 people, 600 people. So I needed to have a big splash and do this gala. And as I'm planning the gala and we're doing community convos, right? Because I'm like, well, I need to hear from people. And I felt like we were planning the gala for people who could afford that. But where are the Black people? Where are our where are our advisory people or whatever? And they're like, well, everybody's working from home. I'm like, oh, no. We're going to go out in the community. And thankfully to my very good friend, Navasha Daya, and her husband, Fanon Hill, who run Youth Resiliency Institute in Cherry Hill. Navasha, I met on the campus of Morgan State University in the choir. We came up with a plan to let's pilot a community listening session. And we started in Cherry Hill. And we went, and over 100 people showed up. And that was the starting point. And we've done it every month since then. And then we refined it, because we noticed that as we started to going into other neighborhoods, sometimes we weren't welcome as much, right? Like, you have some very strong community association leaders who are like, what are you doing in my neighborhood? And we're like, but wait. And so we've had to I think, resolve what the value is of having ABC come in. And we found our model, which is that we go into the neighborhood. We tend not to partner with the community association. We invite them. We tend to partner with other community organizations in the neighborhood because we want the hierarchy to be leveled. We don't want the community association leader to be the only one that speaks out and holds the gavel and all that kind of stuff. We don't have a horse in the race. So we want everyone to be heard. So we go in and we convene a different kind of conversation. It's not a trauma conversation. It's not commiseration. It's about what's working here. What resources do you have here? What ideas do you have here? And how can we strengthen them? And so our secret sauce came in when we started bringing our supporters in. We started bringing ABC sponsors into the meetings. We started bringing our community partners into the meetings. Now they're coming into the neighborhood. We're bringing resources. In Park Heights, we had, I think it was year one, we had a community convo there. Everybody's like, what you doing in Park Heights? I'm like, we just in Park Heights. And one of our corporate sponsors came and wrote a check that night. Not to ABC, but to one of the community initiatives that had been lifted in the room. And we were like, that's it. That's what makes us welcome. And now people call us and invite us into their neighborhoods and into their communities. And we've also expanded into Baltimore County. And this month, we've been invited to go to Howard County. And so we've also created a version of this on college campuses. So we went to Stevenson University, invited by the Black Student Union to convene there. So we've convened in different places using ABC's superpower to convene. But I say that to say that when the gala was the most important thing here, we were catering to a specific demographic of stakeholder. And it was important to me to expand what that looked like, right? If we care about Black people, we have to care about all Black people. And also at their intersections. So we have to care about Black people in the queer community, and we have to care about Black Jews, and we have to care about Black, older people and all kinds of things. And so I think we've done that extremely well. And I think our collaboration with other organizations who triage those intersections has been extremely important too.
Wow. So people are listening to us every time you say we. They may think that the we is comprised of hundreds of people.
Yeah.
So when you came, there were 8.
Yeah. We went down to 4.
You went down to, so what's we look like? Because we, makes, you're doing a whole lot of things so so that people can know how compact this team is.
Yes.
I mean,
we're very lean.
Okay.
And I'm insistent on being a good steward of the resources. And that means as a nonprofit leader who's done this across the country, the one way I know how to control our stewardship of the resources is with my head count. And so I have not, at one point ABC had 40 employees. And, back in the day, we've run anywhere from 4 to 6, 7 employees during my tenure here. We're just now restructuring. We are hiring a little bit differently so that we can invest in the roles that we need to get the work done. I think fully staffed will be at about 12 people, which is amazing. In fact, I have staff members that are like, where are these people going to sit? And I'm like, we'll work it out. We'll figure it out. But very lean team. I have, just by nature of how things shook out, I have one employee here who predates me, like this guy, just has been such a strong support system to the vision. Like you're talking about somebody who had been here 8, 9 years, Bernard Sims, before I got here, who would have been perfectly positioned to not want to see change, who opened his eyes and was like, I see the vision, I've caught the vision, now I'm going to partner on the vision, and has done that, and I appreciate that. But, staffing is always difficult. And for me, what's most important is getting the right people. And sometimes people have been right for the season and not right for the long haul, not right for the shift, or not right at all, and I'm able to say that too. But I am insistent, because of what I've experienced as an employee in other places, that the culture here be one that is built on gratitude. To work successfully for ABC and to work successfully for me, you have to be grateful to be able to do this work.
So my question really was more around the fact that you do a lot with a little.
Oh, yeah. You would think we have 100
that was
here.
really,
No, we don't have a lot of people at all. But the people we have here are gritty. We roll up our sleeves and we get it done. We don't outsource a lot at all. And so people who work here have like giant spirits, but we're a very small team.
Okay, right. That's where I was going.
Yeah.
So what have you had to personally sacrifice to lead at this level? I mean, you've taken it from 2 events to monthly conversations and You didn't even describe all of the events, but there are more than the two that you found when you came here with a very, very compact yet talented team. So what have you had to personally sacrifice?
I try not to focus on the sacrifice because if I do, I probably crash out. But so you heard me say I was divorced and got remarried. I got remarried in 2021. And so I entered ABC with a very new young marriage to someone I had prayed for, right? And I tell people all the time, I asked God for this man and then came here and now running around.
Well, this is the man that
Baltimore.
found the job too, right?
But he did find a job, right? So he did, there's that. So I think when I think of sacrifice, my commitment to visibility, I'm always conscious of what that has meant for my children, for my husband, for my blended family. And so that can be a sacrifice. I try to integrate him as I can, and he enjoys a lot of it. And now I think in the beginning he enjoyed more of it. Now he's like, I don't want to go to that or whatever the case is. And so we do that. But I'm very conscious of that. I think for me personally, do I sacrifice some sleep? I don't sleep a lot anyway. Do I sacrifice a lot personally? I don't think so. I think I'm who I was meant to be. I think I'm who I'm born to be. I don't know if other people can understand that when I say that. I think I am who I was destined to be. I think everything I've traveled through uniquely prepared me for this. So I feel just grateful. There are times that I'm exhausted and tired and all that. But at the end of the day, if I wouldn't do anything else than this work I'm doing, which I think is around empowerment. And think of the things I wanted to do. I wanted to be a lawyer so I could be an advocate for people who were being harmed in the system. I wanted to be a public speaker so I could encourage and motivate people. I was an event planner. I was a fundraiser. I'm doing all the things. Like God put me together like a Lego set along the way. And now I'm here. And so the sacrifice might be for my family, and I'm conscious of that, but I don't feel the personal sacrifice.
All right. So this may be my last question, but I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, when people are looking through the annals of history of Associated Black Charities, who's now celebrating its centennial or something like that. And they start looking at the list of CEOs and executive directors, and they get to your name. What are you hoping they'll say about your legacy?
Gosh, I really don't mind that people might say I was no nonsense. I think we're living at a time where we have to be very clear and firm about this work that we're doing. So I want to be the person that was, I tell people I'm not resilient, I'm relentless. That's how I want to be defined. I also want to be defined as someone who didn't experience success and not look to the left or right or behind and make sure that she was surrounded by a number of other people who would also have the opportunity to contribute to it. I want people to say that I was always willing to learn and grow. I want people to say that I was audacious and a risk taker. I want people to say that they knew where I stood, not just my head, but where my heart stood. And I, more than anything, want people to say that they felt that I was grateful for this God-given gift to be gifted with talents and thoughts and have somewhere to put them and pour them. I want people to say that Black people's opportunity was increased during the time I was here because I was not distracted in my focus around making sure people had better outcomes.
Thank you for this Equity in Action conversation with Chrissy Thornton, the CEO, executive director,
all the things,
the person who leads Associated Black Charities and has done so much in such a little time. Thanks, Chrissy. I've enjoyed our conversation, and it was just good to talk with you. All the best.
Thank you so much. And thank all of you for joining us for the Diane Bell McCoy Equity First webinar series. Stay in touch with Associated Black Charities, and we'll see you soon. Good night.